Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the training and internship program organized by Cybersecure India. I hope I am audible. Someone from the team can just let me know if I am audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you very much and welcome to Cybersecure India training and internship program. For joining, and today's first session and the launch of training and internship program. We'll be sharing some of the rules and regulation which are already actually mentioned into the email while when basically where we have emailed you and sent the announcement on nas.io/cybersecure India. So thank you very much once again for participating in this huge number. And today is the first session. So how will the be the flow? I will explain you. So after this session, after every session, there will be a quiz which will be rolled out. Your attendance will be marked on the basis of quiz, and the quiz form will be only valid for 20 minutes after the session. The quiz form is only for the people who attend the session. So the quiz form link will be shared on YouTube. Also, the quiz form, the feedback form session will be also sent on the link, YouTube channel. Also, at times it will be 20 minutes, at time it will be 10 minutes, depending on the like joining the Telegram channel. Make sure you install the fundamentals of OS and system is the today's topic. So when we say fundamentals of OS is today's topic, there will be a assignment which will be given to you, a live labs basically for solving and for learning on the same. So you have to solve that, and where to submit and how that the structure would be, we will be emailing that to you. The assignment should be completed before the next session. Daily you have to dedicate 3 to 4 hours, and on weekend 8 hours, including training sessions for this assignments and live projects working. So this is how basically we are working, and we have to work in synchronization. After the completion of 3 months, we will be having a MCQ pattern examination, and also a live machine hack, that is a practical examination. Basis on the results, you will be allocated certifications. And any questions about the sessions, you can post it into the live YouTube chat, where basically you will be silent. The questions will be taken care by our moderator and to the speaker, and then the speaker will answer that questions accordingly at the end of the session. So make sure you ask all the questions, or make a note of it, make summary of the session, and that also you can upload while you're uploading your assignment, so that you also understand how much you have got the knowledge about it. Okay. So please, if you want to add anything. So I'll introduce one of our core team member, Kiran Kumar Subudhi is with us, and he's our core team member. Also takes a lot of sessions for Cybersecure India and a lot of activities. So let's say a lot of backend work is there, which he does. He is also information security engineer at ACL Digital. I'll hand it over to him, so he'll speak for.
Hello, good morning, team. Good morning, everyone. So, yeah, all the best for the internship journey. So, this internship, our main goal is to like spread awareness as well as join many people, like more and more people to cybersecurity journey. Apart from this, this internship covers mostly on like majority of the we had divided into three to four sections. First is web application pen testing, and before web application pen testing there are basic fundamentals. It can be OS related fundamentals or basic for programming fundamentals and networking fundamentals and everything. Once we are once we have covered the fundamentals, then we will be moving into web application pen testing. Once the web application pen testing is done, we will be then moving to network pen testing and later on to Android application and iOS pen testing probably. As of now, we are just focusing on Android application pen testing, but we will try if we can arrange iOS pen testing too, and then finally into forensics and incident handling. So this is how the flow of the internship will be taking place. Apart from this, we will try to keep this internship more and more interactive with assignments and stuff, and make sure on most of the syllabus or most of the things, sessions that will be taken care will be based on the industrial standards, like based on how exactly the industrial tools and techniques works and what are tools that are used in the industry itself. So it will be very useful for you the once you apply for a job or will are trying to get more opportunity into the globe. All right. Thank you, everyone.
So, once again, Nikhil here, and this is only possible basically because of our empaneled speakers, core team members, and our mentors. So, I express my gratitude towards them regarding this internship, like for contributing towards the training and internship program. So, thank you very much for basically participating and contributing towards the training and internship program here, and for attending today's session. So thank you very much. Ashutosh sir is our one of the empaneled speaker, and he's taking the first session of Cybersecurity India training and internship program for today. So I'll hand it over to Arundhati, who will be taking the moderating the session today. Thank you. Arundhati, over to you.
Thank you, Nikhil. So first of all, I would like to welcome all the participants to our first session of Cybersecured India Training and Internship Program. And we have one of our colleague, Ashutosh Upadhyay sir, who would be taking over the first session. So I would just give a brief idea about his, bios. So he's a cybersecure enthusiastic and a bug hunter. So currently he is working as a DevOps security analyst. He's also a first prize. He has also won a first prize at the India DevOps shows in 2022 for best use of DevOps and the security tools. He comes with an experience, 2 years of experience in cybersecurity domain. So I would request Ashutosh Upadhyay sir to take over this session now. Hello, Ashutosh.
Hello, I'm audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, good morning. Thank you so much for such a kind introduction. Let me share my screen. Yeah, it is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Great. So today we're going to talk about in this first session. We're going to talk about the basics one. Like we're going to today we're going to talk about computer and OS fundamentals. So in today's session, I will let you proceed ahead with the session. Before that, who I am. So a little bit about myself. I am a DevOps security analyst. I am also a security researcher and a bug hunter. I write blogs on my websites. Name is blog.ashutoshubhadhyay.tech. And you can find me on the social net with my username Ashutosh Yupa. Perfect. So with this, I will like to begin with the session. The very first one is this. We are going to talk like why we need hardware knowledge, like why the hardware knowledge is important in the field of cybersecurity. As the very first session, I would like to consider make sure like everybody knows about what the vulnerability is and why we are going to consider that the softwares and hardwares in this field, right? So when we are talking about as a hacker or like as a hacker or even as a security researcher, when you are like performing any other vulnerability assessment or something, we have to keep in the mind like why we are like using softwares or why we are considering the hardwares for such things. Perfect. So when we consider like why the hardware knowledge is important in the field of cybersecurity, a part of software, like a software is compulsion, but why hardware is also important. So we need to know that when the hacker should know more about the machines, like how it works. If you want to like get into a system, you should know like how the system is working over there. Correct. So breaking the only software based vulnerabilities are not sufficient. There are ICs and any input devices which can be manipulated or injected and will work as a spyware device. So while we are talking about vulnerabilities, I will like to just put some light over there. So what the actually vulnerability means is when we're talking about the vulnerability, the definition of the vulnerability may differ for other many peoples, like the definition world. But what I actually mean when I'm talking about vulnerability is it is nothing but some different use case or case scenario that has been missed by the developer when he is developing some software, or you can say he is developing uh, any of his project. So, for example, when you are taking a very simple example of vulnerability, just to understand what the actual vulnerability means is, so for example, there is a developer and he is developing a contact form, you can say, a basic contact form, correct? In this contact form, the developer has mentioned few of the input fields, like how the contact form gonna look like. It's gonna look like developer may ask the first name, it may ask the last name, and the feedback and submit button. The key scenario here the developer is thinking is that user will come, he gonna enter his first name in the first name input field, he gonna enter his second name in the input field. After that, the user will enter the feedback in the feedback input field and he will press on the submit button. This is the only one use case most of the developers consider, and they develop the project considering this thing. Hello,
Uh, Ashutosh,
I'm on.
yeah, your voice was lagging actually. Could you please repeat once again?
Okay. Is my voice is clear right now?
Right now, yes, it is clear.
Perfect, perfect. So I was talking about what the vulnerability is. So I was there, like we had considered a use case when a developer has created a basic contact form and he has put a few of the input fields over there by considering one of the use case, like what can be the use case for the for the normal user. So we have considered that the developer has created a contact form where he has put a few of the input fields required for first name as well as for last name and feedback and submit button. Correct. But this is the one of the only one use case developer has considered. Like in the most of case, this happens. So when a hackers come to that contact form, what he gonna do? In the input field of first name, a part of entering the first name, he gonna try every payloads, every other things, a part of the correct input. Correct. So for example, I am a hacker. When I go to that contact form, in the first name, instead of writing my name as Ashutosh, I'm gonna try every other payload. I'm gonna try JavaScript's accesses, correct? I'm gonna try basic JavaScript access payload that is script alert 1, 2, 3 or something. So here what I'm doing, I'm trying some different queries, some different codes or syntax over there, some different codes over there, so that I can come to know that yeah, if this code execute over here, I can do my unintended behavior. I can perform my unintended behavior over here. So developer haven't think in this scenario like it can be possible, or like this case scenario can be possible. So developer should restrict input field by some different special character for some different numbers a part of the first name. So this is one of the basic example. Just I want to highlight what the vulnerability over there. So the vulnerability, I think like you got the basic picture of vulnerabilities. Now, when we are talking about hardware knowledge is not why hardware knowledge is important in the field of cybersecurity. So as we consider for the software one, like for the software, the hacker should know about how the software is working, how it has been developed, in order to crack the software, in order to hack the software. Similar way, the hacker should also know about how the hardware are working over there. The hardware we are using, like the computers or mobiles, or you can say PC or motherboard and all, how these all hardware are performing, like how they are coordinating with each other, how these are functioning with each other, correct? In order to understand how the software are working. So when you're talking about, when you're proceeding ahead, the slides, the next point we are going to talk in this session is components of computer. When you're talking about the components of a computer, so in the computer, there are various different components, but the main component is like the you can say the heart of the computer. We call it CPU. CPU is nothing but the central processing unit, which we all know as the brain of the computer. Correct? When we are using CPU, CPU consists of few of the major things like ALU, that is arithmetic logic unit, the logic unit, and control unit. The ALU is nothing but it is responsible for mathematical functions. For example, if I have to perform any mathematical and the mathematical some sort of problems over there, or combinations over there, which includes any multiplication, subtraction, and addition or division, it's gonna use the ALU, that is arithmetic logic unit of CPU. All right. When you're talking about the logical unit, it is something which is responsible for logical operations. For example, it's gonna return in a boolean value, either it is true or it is false, it is zero or it is one. Correct. So this is the like basic function of logical unit. When we're talking about the control unit is responsible for the sequence of instruction the CPU will execute. So, for example, if I am performing various, if I am like giving various instructions to the CPU, I'm giving, I have to read, I have to write, I have to perform this, and after that this. So the control unit going to manage like which instruction should be executed first. After this, which instruction will be executed afterward. So all the sequence of the instruction are managed by the control unit. It also manages the timing of the CPU, that is the CPU clock. All right. When I'm proceeding ahead, there is a next term we are going to talk about is bus line. What the bus line actually is. So when we're talking about the bus is nothing but the high-speed internet connection used to control signals and data from processor to other components. When we're talking about the bus now, it is something like we can refer is it is connecting unit between two or different components. We can consider we can learn more about bus with the types given over here, like address bus. So for example, when I'm talking about the address bus, it is one of the type of bus line, correct? So what actually address bus is like if I want to store any of the data in my memory, correct? I want to store that this is a piece of data, and I want to allot this piece of data some storage, some position in my memory, some address in my memory. So the address bus is going to provide the particular location in the memory, and it's gonna allot that yeah, this piece of data is been stored in this particular address in the memory. Perfect. So this is where the address bus is. It is a like one-way channel. Like it only transfer the data from processor to the memory, and we're gonna store it into the memory. Perfect. When we're talking about next type, that is data bus. What data bus do? It is bidirectional. Like as the address bus was unidirectional, it is only carrying the data and allotting it a particular space in the memory. In this case, the data bus is bidirectional. It's gonna carry the data from your processor to memory and then response back to memory to processor and vice versa. Correct. So database is something which is bidirectional. It's gonna carry the data in the both way. But when we're talking about the control buses is something which is also the bidirectional, and we're gonna control various different inputs, very different components over there. So when we're talking about bus lines, back to the first question, what is a bus line? Bus line is like something which is high speed internal connection, correct? It is high speed internal connection. So just imagine when you just press any data, you just copy and paste something, it gonna allot some memory over there. So back the scene, the bus line is something which gonna like save it, we're gonna perform all the instruction over there, we're gonna transfer the data between two components and all, right? So that's why it is called as high speed internal connection. It uses control signals and data from the processor to other components. When you are proceeding ahead, the next question may arise is what is the meaning of 32-bit processor, or you can say 64-bit processor? As usual, we have heard this many ways. When we go for purchasing some laptops, we are gonna talk about some of processor. We always consider that yeah, my PC is 62-bit processor, or my PC is 64-bit processor, correct? 32-bit or 64-bit, sorry. So what that actually means is this number actually tells us like how many memory a processor can access from a CPU register. So, for example, there is a processor which is running a CPU, right? So how many the maximum number of memory I can allot to that processor is what that's 32-bit and 64-bit is. So for example, 32-bit system says that it can address the length of 3.5 GB of RAM, right? At most, it can allot 3.5 GB. So it can allot less than 3.5. Perfect. But when we're talking about 64-bit, it can easily allot the addresses up to 1 crore 80 lakh of terabytes. That's why nowadays most of the user everybody just uses 64 bits of the computer, and most of the software even supports 64 bits instead of 32 bits, right? When we're proceeding ahead, okay, now proceeding with the motherboard. So what the motherboard actually is? The motherboard in a PC, in a system, in the computer look like something like this. Yeah, which may consist of various components like CPU, fan, I/O panels, and your audio and batteries, not with chipsets and I/O chips, CPU sockets, your chassis, fan, and all. Right. This is what your motherboard look like. But what actually it is? Motherboard is like you can say the like main processing component of system of your computer, correct? All of the tasks perform over like your memory, your processor are gonna interact with each other with the help of motherboard only. What is the RAM? RAM is also like there is a memory slot over there where the RAM is connected, correct? So what the actually means of this RAM, what the RAM does? RAM is nothing but it is a volatile storage. When I'm talking about when I'm saying volatile storage, I means that it stores the data temporarily. Temporary means it store the data for some sort of period, for some instance of time. So for example, if I am performing some task, some processes for computation, or you can say calculation or something, it's gonna store all the data in the RAM so that it can be used for the temporary purpose. Once the usage is over, it's gonna flush the memory. Or even if we just restart our system, every time we restart the system, all the data stored in the RAM gonna flush out. They are not stored permanent. Perfect. So RAM is like used for various purposes. Whenever you're running any of the software or processes, it utilizes the RAM for its speed and all factors. Perfect. But when we're talking about storage, what is storage actually is? Storage is nothing but it is we can compare storage with RAM. It is just opposite of that. Just opposite in the sense when you talk in the RAM was volatile one, right? But the storage is non-volatile one. Every piece of the data stored in storage is permanent located over there, so that even though if you restart the system, or just you close the programs, the data stored in the storage are gonna be there. It doesn't gonna be flushed out or something. So storage, when you're talking about storage, there are also different type of storages like SSD, HDD, CDs, DVDs, correct? So there are different type of storage we used in our day-to-day life, but this is all about storage. But now, what is graphic card? You may consider graphic card while you're going to buy some new laptops. You ask the seller like, I want a system with graphic card inbuilt, or I want. Many of the people also purchase the graphic card additionally, like for enhancement of their processes, or you can say speed, performance, boosting their performance, as well as for gaming purpose or video or audio editing, something, right? So what the graphic card actually is? Graphic card is also known as video card. You can say it as a graphic processing unit. So card is used for rendering images and videos. Okay, it has a specialized processor for doing the complex calculations. Okay, so when we're talking about a graphic card, it consists of various different components also. Like it's on processor, it's on fan, or that is a cooling fan, which is used in the graphic card. So graphic card is something which we used for like enhancement of a performance for video and audio, video and images editing. Like it is used for rendering the images. The better your graphic card, the better, the more complex calculation it can perform, and the more faster it can perform. Right. So that's why we use graphic cards also in the system. But now, what is input and output devices? Everybody may know about what are the input and output devices, but still, when you're talking about the input device, it is something which we use to give the instruction to our system, or let's say you can say which we use to give inputs to our system, to our computers. So in the case of laptops, in the case of computers, the mouse is the perfect example of input device. We use mouse to give inputs like how we want to use our cursor on the screen and all. But while talking about the output device, it's something where the data has been outputted or given back to the user. So the perfect example for output device is nothing but your monitor, your printer, or you can say your speakers. Correct? Now, softwares. What are the softwares and why we use softwares? So when we say software is nothing but that are the set of programs and instruction that have written over there for the PC to be followed, right? We are talking about softwares. Like we use software. Every single person using a computer, they have to like always use the software, right? Like computer is nothing but the combination. It's also consists of hardware and softwares. Perfect. So when you're talking about the software is also categorized into two parts: system softwares and application softwares. System software is something which has been used by the system itself. For example, operating systems is also one of the system software. Device drivers, and like device drivers is also an example of system software which has been used by system itself for its proper functioning, right? But when you're talking about the application software, it is something different. Application software is being used for user convenient. For example, if user want to browse the internet, they use web browsers. So in this case, web browser is also software, but instead of system software, web browser is your application software, which has been used by the user for the user convenient for browsing the internet. Correct? So I hope like the basic difference between system and application software is this only, where the system software has been used by the system itself for its proper functioning and other features, while the application software is something which is used for the user convenient, as well user different use case, like different use case depends upon the different scenarios for the user itself. While we're talking about the softwares, in the software zone we have talked about OS, that is operating system, right? Operating system, just a quick recap, it was also a system software, as I said right now. So operating system also have its different types like Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Androids, etc. When we're talking about different type of operating system, the most famous one we always use is like Windows and Androids, Linux and Mac OS. But what is kernel in the software? What is shell? What is processes? And what is bootloaders? Kernel is like the main core of the computer. It is something which initiate in the beginning, and it is like something which communicate between your hardware as well as your operating system. Okay, it is the middleware over there. So every instruction the user passes using the application to the it been passed through kernel to the hardware. Let's say for example I want to print I want to print, okay, or for example I have clicked somewhere. So from the user application I have clicked somewhere, but the data has been transferred to the kernel and kernel gonna transfer to the hardware. So you can take it the vice versa, like I'm using the mouse, right? Mouse is my hardware. So when I click, the data has been transferred from the hardware to the kernel, and kernel gonna transfer the data to the application, and I can see that yeah, here is my kernel, here is my cursor, and here I am clicking something. Or you can say some different examples also. But the basic thing what I want to say is kernel is nothing but it is just a middleware between your operating system as well as your hardwares. What is shell? Shell is nothing but just when you're talking about the shell, it is nothing but just a terminal based, you can say, or let's say you can say the access of your core systems, where you can run your commands, you can execute all of your tasks over there in the shells. When you're talking about the processes is nothing but the jobs which are executed in the background. So you can say the process is nothing but the execution of your commands, or you can say your programs which has been done in the computer, which we call as a process. Process can be of different types. There are various type of processes also. And when we're talking about the bootloaders, it is something which has been like initiated in the beginning. Like for example, I want to start my computer. So the first software in the first software that run in the while starting the computer is your BIOS, right? BIOS is a basic input output system. This so what BIOS does, it just check with which are the operating system available over there, right? The BIOS gonna trigger the operating system for turning on, and it gonna run the bootloaders. We're gonna load your boots, like it gonna say like yeah, boot is turning on or boot is turning off. The bootloader like is being used over there. When you're talking about dual boot, I hope like everybody had heard about this. Like I want to just if I have a computer, or let's say I have a laptop, and I want to use multiple operating systems in my laptop, correct? Let's say I want to use Windows as well as I want to use Linux also. So I have different options. Either I can go for virtualization, like I can use VirtualBox. Either I can just use dual boots. So dual boot is nothing but using multiple OS. Is it a dual boot is installing multiple OS into the same computer. So right now also in my in this computer, I have dual booted Kali Linux and a Windows. So what that means is when I want to use Kali Linux, I can just boot into Kali Linux, which is one of the operating system. If I want to use Windows, I can boot into Windows also. So in this case, it doesn't require me two separate computers for using two different operating system. Instead, I can use one single computer where I can run two different operating systems. Talking about VMware is just, as I said, it is one of the another option for using two different operating systems. VMware, for example, VMware Workstation is a line of desktop hypervisor product which let user run virtual machine containing Kubernetes and cluster. When I'm talking about hypervisor is nothing but dividing or like you can say separating your hardwares into two for two different user. For example, I have a computer. For example, I have a RAM consist of 32 GB RAM, 32 GB. Perfect. So if my RAM is 32 GB, I can use the hypervision technique to divide that 32 into 16 GB and 16 GB, where 16 GB has been used will be using in a separate and different for different user also, and other systems 16 GB partition will be using for different user also, and they both not gonna be colliding with each other, and they both gonna work in a two different manner. This technique is called as hypervision. So when we are using a VMware, we are just using hypervision technique to run virtual machines, to run containers, to run Kubernetes clusters on our host system on this laptops. Perfect. Talking about Windows. Windows is one of the operating system we just considered. We just talked. over here in the type of operating system. We just talk about Windows. Perfect. So talking about Windows, there is a huge history of the Windows. It was first introduced in 1985, where the Windows 1.0 was discovered. But right now we are using Windows 11, which was introduced in 2021. So in between, there are various different versions of Windows that they introduced in different years, right? When we're talking about Windows, in Windows we have Windows user account. We have when we're talking about Windows user account, uh, Window Windows we know is the operating system, right? But the same operating system can be used by multiple users. So in my Windows, I can create three different accounts, and I can make sure that the three different accounts have different files, have different storage, and they're not gonna collide with each other. Have different softwares also. So the Windows user account is something which give you the like an accessibility of using different of using the operating system in perspective of different users, you can say, right? When we're talking about the services in the Windows, there are various services running in the background, or also services which we run for our convenience. So when we're talking about the services, you can just go to taskbar and check what are the services running in your background. So if I just go to my taskbar, I can show like Windows always run various services in the background for its proper functioning, right? So here I am using Firefox. It's one of the services, one of the software running in the background job. There are various different services running over there. When we're talking about secure, is our Windows is secure enough? So yeah, when we're talking about the Windows, it is secure enough, and Windows also provide us the inbuilt Windows and Windows firewall, right? So talking about Windows security, there are various different security checks you can say, or like security checks has been planted in the Windows. So Windows also runs antivirus by default. It also provide ransomware protection by default in the Windows 11 itself. When we're talking about Windows directory, so in Windows also, if you go to the files, I will just show you. Yeah, it is. Uh, okay, when you just go to the files, you can just check here. There are different directories mentioned, like for flocks, program files, programs in 86, program data, recovery, and all users. Correct. So what this all directory means? When we're talking about per flock, it holds Windows performance logs, right? Performance logs, when I'm telling, is like it holds a log of various different processes, or you can say very different performance. For example, if my system crashes sometimes, maybe possible sometimes your system crashes, your Windows may crash, it may just lag or something. So all the logs regarding that crash, all the logs regarding that event has been stored in the perf log only, so, right? When you're talking about the program files, it stores. Program files may differ according to the architecture of your Windows. It can be 32-bit or 64-bit, right? In 32-bit, all the programs like both 16 and 32 bits are installed in this folder. So whenever I will install any other program, for example, I am just installing VS Code in my laptop, and my laptop is 32-bit. So all the files related to VS Code will be stored in my program files. Similarly, for 62-bit architecture also, all the 64-bit programs are installed in this folder only. None of the 32-bit or 16-bit are installed in 64-bit architecture program files. In short, when we're talking about the program files is nothing but you just store the files related to various programs which we are installing in our system or which has been installed in our system. Correct? When you're talking about the program file x86, as you can see here, I also have a program file into 86. What it means? It appears on 64 bits edition of the Windows. 32-bit and 64-bit are by default installed in this folder, even though 16-bit program do not run on 64 bits. So explaining like why this 86 is been installed. So even though my laptop is 64-bit architecture, I can run my 32-bit program files. Like any of the program which has been made for 32-bit can be run in my this 64-bit laptop. How is it possible? Just because the files related to 32 bits has been installed in this program files folder, in this program file into 86 folder, correct? So that even though if my laptop is 64-bit architecture, if I install any of the application which is made for 32-bit or you can say 16-bit program, with 16-bit architecture, that application can be also run in this laptop because of this program file. It is a directory which includes various different programs for 32-bit and 64-bit, right? When we're talking about program data, the program data, when we're talking about this, the folder over here, the program data, it contains the program data that is expected to access by the computer program regardless of user account in context of which they are run. For example, a program may store specific information needed for operate DVD recorders, image scanner, connected computer. So in short, when we're talking about the program data, uh, I had just previously said that in the Windows there are different users also, right? Every users have their own different directories, like or on different storage. So if I make a folder in a user A, it will not be shown in the user B desktop, right? So when we're talking about the program data directory, it stores the data, it stores the files which are like useful for, which are required for all the users, like irrespective of which user is running the which user is logged in. Program data stores the data. For example, if I want to run DVDs in my laptop, right? So the programs required for running that DVD will be stored in program data, and it will be accessible to all the users of their Windows, right? So you may say that program data holds the data, the programs which are required for proper functioning, for proper execution of different features of Windows, and it holds the data irrespective of which users logged in. It is accessible by all, right? We are talking about users, the users folder over here. You can say this user folder. What this user folder holds? The user profile folder, the folder contain one subfolder for each user that is logged into the system at least once. So for example, in my Windows, if I create two different user, first one Ashutosh, and second one any of the name, let's say Rohan. I created two user Ashutosh and Rohan. So in this user folder, there will be two different folder created for both, one for Ashutosh and one for Rohan, right? Also in in user folder, there is two other folder named public and default. When you're talking about public and default is like default user that will be used. Uh, it's also the one of the hidden folder over there, you can say. But yeah, default folder is also there, which isn't used by default user. The default user is a user which has been like using the laptop. When we purchase the laptop for the first time, we set one of the user as a default user, which is the first user over there. So default user folder contains the data for that user. We can change the default user afterward, but yeah, this was about default user. When you're talking about the all user, it contains when you're talking about all user, it contains the data which can be accessible by all the users. So all user folder, it's something similar to program data, right? So similarly, the all user folder contains the symbolic link. When you talk about symbolic link, you can refer symbolic link as a shortcuts for now, but it's something different than shortcuts. So shortcut in the sense, we can just link to the data with files present in program data. So for example, in my laptop, I want to use the image scanner, or you can say a printer, and the drivers of the printer will be stored into my program data folder, right? But I want that this driver to be accessible by all the user in my Windows. So the driver will show in the program data, but the symbolic links, the shortcuts, the reference of that drivers will be there in all user folder. All right. Next, we have public folder. We also have public folder over here. So, okay, in the user only, there is a public folder also. So when talking about the public folder, the folder serves as a buffer for the user of a computer to share file. By default, this folder is accessible to all users that can log to the computer. Also, it is used for sharing files between users and computer. Okay, I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Perfect. So we're talking about public folder. So public folder, it serves as a buffer for all the user of a computer to share the file. So by default, this folder is accessible to all the user that can log into the computer. So in short, if for example there are various user in my laptop, in my computer, or user in my network also, if I want to share a file to all the user, or we can take a different example, like I have a folder named uh, PDF, okay, where I have stored one various PDF which are important for me. I want to share this PDF folder to all the users of my computer. So what I will do, I will just save this PDF folder in the public folder over there. So any of the data stored in the public folder will be accessible to all the user. It is also used for like sharing over the network. So if we are connected to the same network, we can share the files with the user connected to the same network, right? So in that case also, we can share the files which are stored in this public folder. All right. When we're talking about the next directory we are going to talk about is nothing but username slash app data. So what that mean? It means that, for example, in my laptop, I have a user named as Ashutosh. Correct. So Ashutosh, the name of my folder will be there in users. In users, okay, in users, there will be a name of Ashutosh. For example, there is a name called as Deepali. So in this also there is a different folder called as app data. So we have seen app data previously also, where we have seen the app data in the root directory, right? In the back over here, we also seen the app data over there, like where it goes, program data over here. Sorry, we have seen the program data over there. What is the app data now, right? When we're talking about the app data in the username, the folders store per user application data and settings that contain the three different folders: roaming, local, and local law. So when we're talking about the app data, in short, while talking about the app data, it's something which stores the data limited to the user. So we can also connect with the directory which shows that it is stored in the username. So for example, the app data stored in Ashutosh folder will be only related to Ashutosh user. None of every other user have access to that data. Correct. What the data will be stored in this app data folder is there are three subfolders like roaming, local, and local low. Roaming is used for network-based login for roaming profiles, where data is used for roaming. Data is saved in roaming will synchronize to computer when user log into that local. So when we're talking about roaming, so in short, if let's say I am just logged in into the user using my network profile or using my profile, it's gonna log all the logs over there, right? In the local and non-local, in local law also, it doesn't sign up with the network computer. So when I'm talking about the local difference between the roaming and the local law, so data stored in the roaming will be synced over the networks. Will be synced when I'm saying will be synced over the network. So user can check the data stored in the roaming folders via the network when he or she will be logged in using the network profiles. But the data stored in the local and local law will be not accessible from the network profile also. Correct? When we're talking about the slash Windows directory, the Windows directory over there, we can check Windows directory. Yeah, here. When we're talking about the Windows directory, The name itself suggests somewhat about what it is about, right? The Windows directory stores the itself, like it itself is installed into this folder. So the operating system of Windows, the files related to the operating system of Windows, all the files related to the operating system will be stored in the Windows folder only, correct? So if okay, that's it. When we're talking about other directories like system 32 or system 32 or 664, 64. So these are the folder which are dynamically linked library, that is DLL files. Okay, these are implement the core feature of Windows and Windows APIs. When we're talking about Windows APIs, in Windows also there are various internal APIs which are triggered on various events. Maybe for like sending signals, or you can say for communicating with the hardwares. Various internal APIs are being triggered, right? Those like system 32, or you can say system 64. This includes various DLL files which implement the core feature of Windows and Windows APIs. Correct. When we're talking about Linux, like in the Windows directory, I guess we have covered most. When we're talking about Linux, Linux is just another operating system, right? Where most of the users nowadays are using Linux also, and it's also accessible on various. Even though if you're using cloud, the first preference we give is like Linux only, right? When you're talking about Linux, Linux is the operating system that has primarily three components. It has kernels, it has system libraries, and it has system utilities. In Linux also, kernel is a core part of the Linux, right? It is responsible for all major activities of this operating system. It consists of various modules and it is interact directly with the underlying hardware. So as we discussed previously also, the definition of the kernel is something which is there in between, and it gonna communicate or it gonna transfer the data between operating system and hardware, correct? So any of the signals or you can say data that is transferring between the operating system or hardware will be done by kernel itself. Talking about system libraries, libraries are special functions or programs which using which application program or system utilities access kernel features. These libraries implement most of the functionality of the operating system and doesn't require kernel modules code access right. So when talking about the system libraries, in short, system library is something which program file used to like access the utilities of kernel features. So if I want to access the kernel features, any of the kernel features if I want to use, so instead of requiring the kernel access right or something to my program, I can use libraries over there. So let's say I just install any of the application map in my operating system, and that application, what it want to do, it want to perform any of the kernel features. Let's say it want to interact with any of the hardware, right? But I don't want that application to give the kernel module code access right, that I don't want to him to like directly give access right of my kernel modules, right? So what I can use here, where the system library come in the picture. The system library, interact with the kernels, and it uses the utilities access of the kernel features and provide the feature accessibility to the application which has installed in the operating system. Okay. Now talking about system utility. System utility programs are responsible to do specialized individual level tasks. When you're talking about system utility, let's if I want to perform any of the individual level tasks, or you can say any of the independent level of the task, the system utility program are responsible for that. For example, I want to turn on my network, right? Network is one of the system utility where we connect our Wi-Fi, we connect our the LAN and WAN. The system utility for that, like if I want to turn on my Wi-Fi, the program going executing behind that is what our system utility is, right? Talking about the features of the Linux, there are various features of the Linux we can count. Few of them is like Linux is portable. When you're talking about portability, Portability means software can be work on different type of hardware in the same way. Linux kernel and application programs support their installation on any kind of the hardware platforms. You can even install Linux in your like Raspberry Pi or in your computer, in a cloud, right? Another feature of Linux is like it is open source. So the source code of Linux operating system is freely available and it is community based development project. That's why even on also multiple team can work in collaboration to enhance the capability of Linux operating system and is continuously evolving. So when I say it is open source, the source code of the Linux is been accessible to and every user, right? So even though any of you want to contribute into the Linux, they can just go, they can download the source code, they can contribute the code, they can submit it, and they can contribute to the Linux operating system itself. Correct? I'll talk about multi-user. So Linux is a multi-user system, which means multiple user can access the system resources like memory, RAM, application program at the same time, right? Even though I am using my laptop over here, if I am using Linux in this, many of the users also the same Linux at the same time using SSH or various different protocols. But yeah, it supports multi-user functionality also. Apart from it, the another feature is multi-program. So Linux is a multi-program system which means multiple users can access the system resources. Yeah,
Hello, Ashutosh.
Linux is yeah. I'm on.
Uh, s- Sorry about that. Your voice was breaking. Could you just repeat that one more time?
Okay. Shall I just repeat all of the stuff like from the put? Fine. So, talking about the features of Linux also, just a quickly, okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes, you are
You are
audible.
audible. Okay. Just a quick recap of features of Linux. So we had covered the portable. That is the Linux's portability. Portability is one of the like a unique feature of Linux. That is, it can be installed any of the hardwares, irrespective of like it types and it configurations. It gonna work in the same way. Another feature we have talked is it's open source, so that the Linux source code is freely available on the internet. So if you want to contribute into the development of Linux, you can go to the website. You can download the source code of the Linux and contribute over there, and you can become one of the contributor of Linux operating system. Talking about the multi-user, Linux also support the multi-user system. That means multiple user can access the system resources. So for instance, if I am using Linux in my laptop right now, any of other user can also access the same system using SSH or using some different protocols. But yeah, Linux also support multi-program, multi-users. Another feature we are talking about was multi-programming. So Linux is a multi-programming system, which means multiple application can run at the same time. So it's something we can compare with multitasking, or even it support various different programming languages also. Another feature is like hierarchical file system. So the Linux provide us standard file structure in which files are organized according to the hierarchy of so Linux also provide hierarchical file system where Linux provides a standard file structure in which files, user file are arranged. So when we see now like the hierarchy of file system in Linux, I can just show you. Talking about the hierarchy of the file system of Linux, Linux have as different file structures. Okay, so if I show you over there, here it is. Linux have various different file structures, which includes various different file for various different processes, like for use, separate file for users, separate file for devices, and all. We haven't talked about the file system in on further. Talking about the shells. So Linux provides a special interpreter program which can be used to execute commands of operating systems. It can be used to do various type of operations, call programs, etc. So when we talk about the Linux now, the terminal of Linux, the shell of the Linux is so powerful that you don't even require GUI for performing most of the tasks over there, right? You can do most of the tasks, even though every other task from the terminal itself. Talking about the security, Linux provide user security using authentication features like password protection, control access to specific files, and encryption of the data and all. So the security of the Linux is also been taken care very well, so that the user data will be protected over there. Even though there are multiple users in Linux, right? It has been supported by multi users also. There are multiple users also. Then also, like none of the user can access the file of another user until and unless they are the super user or they know the password of other user. Correct? Next, Linux. Okay, so Linux is open source, right? We are just saying like, yeah, Linux is open source. So what open source mean is we have discussed. When Linux is open source, we can access this source code over the internet. We can contribute over there. We can see how this operating system works and all, right? It supports multiple distros. When I'm talking about distros, it includes that there are different types distros of the Linux like Ubuntu, Kali, Debian, right? There are multiple different distros over there in the market of Linux. When we're talking about the security part of the Linux, Linux can be said as one of the secure operating system as it consider various security points into consideration. Like if you use the Linux now, you can make sure like they make sure that all of your data as well as like the security part over there has been maintained in various in a proper manner. But why Linux is more preferable nowadays? Why we use prefer Linux? Because it is easy to use. It is open source is one of the reasons. It supports multiple distros, which means we can also customize our distros also. So, for instance, if I just installed a Linux and I want to customize it according to me, like I want to customize it according to me, according to my use case, according to my use scenario, I can easily do it because I have also access to source code. I can modify it for my purpose, right? And now another point we can talk about the preferability is security one. Like yeah, a part of being open source, a part of being giving options of customability, it's also secure enough, right? So if you just check the timeline of uh, just a minute, if we just go to this website here. Here you can check the timeline of Linux, like whenever the first Linux was introduced. After this, okay, okay, fine. There are different distros as I said, right? So the main distros you can see over here is like Debian, correct? You can see here Debian as well as you can see this Slackware. Also in this also you can just zoom in and check there are various different timelines like in the era of 2009 there are different distros like Salix was introduced, Linux was introduced, and Debian also there was Kali was introduced, right? So when we're talking about the distros of Linux, there are multiple options available. We can go for any of them. Or also, if we want for our own, we can go for customizing of our own Linux operating system. Is super easy actually. When we're talking about the commands in the Linux, so as you said that the shell of the Linux is very powerful, right? We can do all of the tasks on the shell itself. But while talking about the commands, there are some basics commands which can be used in Linux. So for example, talking about ls. So if I do ls over here, you can check what other directory has been created. So for example, currently where I am, if I want to check where I am, I can use pwd. Pwd shows my current directory, correct? If I will use pwd, it's gonna show me I am currently at home in ashu folder, in the folder named as ashu. If I want to create a folder over here, let's say I want to create a folder name hacker. What I will do, I will just use the command mkdir, that is nothing but make directory. Correct? I will use mkdir hacker. It's gonna create a folder named as hacker. If I will check hacker here, the hacker folder has been created. Correct? Now, if I want to enter into the hacker folder, I want to change the directory and I want to enter into that hacker folder. I will use cd hacker, right? So the cd means is nothing but change the directory which we use to like changing a directory into some another directory, which can be a folder or the previous one, right? So right now we are into hacker folder we have just created. Now, if we check here, there is no file present over there, right? For example, I want to create here another folder. Let's say example one, and I want to check which file is this. So this is the example one file over here. Correct? If I will check for ls also, there are different attributes. Like for example, if I want to check all other information present in this directory, ls is like in all other information is directory. So here example one, the folder we have just created. Along with this name, we are getting some different informations like time and this month, there's some numbers, this some ashu and ashu, that is the users, and this is something drw xrx. What is this all? Right? When we're talking about this all, this is all the additional information regarding the folders present over there. So along with example, we are also getting this dot and double dot. What does this mean? When I will enter, let's say I want to enter into this dot one. So this dot means the current folder in which I am. So hacker, I'm currently in the hacker, right? So if I will enter cd space dot, I will be into on this folder only, this hacker folder only. What is double dot means? If I'll just enter cd double dot, here I just got back to the home directory, right? Okay, just check it out. If I into the hacker, if I just change the directory, I will get into the hacker directory. Here, if I check my current directory using pwd, you can see like right now I'm into home, ashu, and hacker. But if I will use cd space double dot, and then I will check my current directory, you can see I am into home and ashu. I just got back into ashu folder. All right, all right. Now back to the hacker and clear the screen. That is clear command. We have some different commands over here like chmod and who am I, cat, etc. So talking about who am I is what it shows is like who am I, right? So it's gonna show us like which user I am, which user I am currently logged into with. I am currently logged into with Ashu user. So it's gonna show me like, yeah, you are Ashutosh. When I will enter who am I, it's gonna show me you are Ashu, not Ashutosh, because I'm currently logged into Ashu user. Now talking about some different commands, like for example, in this folder I had created example one, right? Now I want to create here another file, some txt file. For example, notes.txt or secret.txt. I want to create here secret.txt. So for secret.txt, I have various options, but I can use touch secret.txt. What you're gonna do? You're gonna create a file named as secret.txt. Correct? I can also create a file with some other command like vi, that is visual editors, or using nano, right? I can use different editors also, but for creating a files, the basic one is touch command. Correct? Uh, We're talking about another basic commands is someone like echo. Echo, what the word itself says is like it's gonna repeat whatsoever you're gonna enter to it, right? The echo word we use like if you're in an open place, you just say loudly your name. It's gonna come back to you. We just refer this phenomenon as a echo, right? But here, what the echo command says is like I just enter here. Hey, this is Ashutosh. It's gonna return back me whatsoever I am passing over here, right? If I am passing here, hey, this is Ashutosh, it's gonna return back in the response, hey, this is Ashutosh. Correct? You will write, hey, how? It's gonna return back how. So that's where the echo command used. So if, for example, I want to store this, hey, this is Ashutosh into a file. I want to store the output of this command into a file. What I will do, I will use this arrow and enter the file name. The file name here is output.txt. Correct? Now output was printed over here. If you check the directory, you can see here there is a file named as output.txt was created. If I want to check what is written into this output.txt, I can use a command cat, right? The cat command is been used to like read whatsoever the content has been written into a file, right? If I want to check in the output.txt, I can use the cat and gonna show me the output as, hey, this is Ashutosh. Correct? If you check in the secret.txt, you had also created a secret.txt file, right? Using touch. So if you just go to secret.txt, if you use cat secret.txt, it has not printed any of the output. Why? Because we have not stored any of the input, any of the text into this secret.txt file. Got it? Okay. Now talking about if you use ls minus la, right? ls minus la, which what it means, like for example, what it means, you will go to there, for example, just any of the command, not only ls, any of the command, and I want to check what are the attribute has been using over there, so I can use help over there, right? So here, when I used ls minus minus help, it's gonna show me the output as the usage of how the ls command will be used. So for using ls command, I can use ls. I can pass any of the options and file names also, right? There are various different arguments like minus a. So when we are using ls minus la, where the a represents all, correct? So if I will use ls minus a, so it's gonna show me all outputs. Here you're getting all the outputs. Like here, this dot and dot dot, these two files are hidden one also. So here I am also getting the hidden files using minus a. You can check the difference. If I use the simple ls, I am getting only the folder as the output and the files as the output. But while I am using ls minus la, you can see here I am also getting the hidden files as the output. Correct? While I was using ls minus la, correct, where l, what it was representing, l, it uses a long listing format. So for example, talking about this only, ls minus l, if I just pass this argument, it's gonna show me the output into a listing format, in a long listing format with some additional information. That's what minus l was used. There are various different arguments present over here also, which we can use for like listing the directories, right? Similarly, we can check say minus help for various other commands also. Like if I pass cd minus minus help, it's gonna show me output as how can I use cd, correct? There is a command in Linux called as man, which means manual. So if I pass man cd, it's gonna show me okay the output for the manual entry for any of the command. So if I just pass who am I, is any manual entries there? Yeah, it is. So when we are using who am I, what the manual entries consist of, Manual entries consist of the manual of what that command is about, who has proposed that command, how to use that command, what are the use cases, the description, copyrights, and all the stuff. In short, a small manual of the command which we can read and learn more about that command, that particular command. So here, when talking about the who am I, it means print the effective user ID. So when I was using who am I, it was printing the user ID Ashu, because right now I'm just logged in with the Ashu, right? And the synopsis, like how we can use the UMI is like UMI and options. When talking about options, there are two options available: minus minus L and minus minus version. Correct. Talking about the author, the UMI was written by Richard Mlinaric. Correct. We can also report vulnerabilities if we found any of the bugs in UMI command using this links provided over there. So like this is all about manual of UMI. You can use the manual of any other, you can check out the manual of any other command. Similarly, like I want to check for cat, the cat, if you remember, we use cat command for checking what are the inputs, what are the text or data stored into any of the txt files or any other files over there, right? So the cat command, what it means is consecrated files and the print on the standard output. Concatenate files and print on the standard output. The synopsis, like the usage of cat command, is something like this, where we have to pass cat. We can pass the options, which are optionals also, and we have to pass files. The files is like the name of the files which we want to list down or we want to check what the content of, right? There are different options or different descriptions mentioned over here regarding the cat, like minus A, minus B, minus E, and many others, right? This is all about cat command. You can check the similarly. You can learn more about any other command you want using the man, that is the manual, right? Talking about ls minus la, right? If you go ahead, okay, yeah, I have mentioned few different commands also, right? PWD, we just tried here PWD, right? We have tried CD, we have tried CD space double dot, we have tried ls minus LA, mkdir. This all are related to directories. But while we are talking about files, let's say I want to delete the files. Okay. So let's talk about the files, right? For example, I just clear the screen. Okay. I want to talk about the files. Okay, so here I have a file named as secret.txt. I want to delete this file. I want to delete this file secret.txt. How can I? I can use the command rm secret.txt. And if you check, the secret.txt was removed. It was deleted. Correct? Let's create this secret.txt file again using touch. Another .txt. All right, we had created another file called as another.txt. But I was supposed to write secret.txt, right? So yeah, if I want to rename this file, if I want to rename this another.txt into secret.txt, what I can use? I can use mv command. Mv another.txt. Let me just zoom in if it's not properly. I don't know where the zoom in is there. Okay, let it be. Still will be visible. I just hope so. Let it be. So where we are just on to like rename the file. We are supposed to rename this another.txt. Correct. How we can rename this another.txt? Okay. How we can rename this another.txt is like we can use mv command. What the mv command will do? It's gonna move the file, right? If I will to move this file another txt with a secret.txt, what it doing here is like it is moving this file another txt to the same location with the name as secret.txt, and using this we have just renamed this another txt to secret.txt, right? But is the mv command is used for rename only? No, mv command is been used for moving the file from one location to another location. So, for example, if I will, if you check, we have a folder name as example one, right? I want to move this secret.txt into this example one folder. Before that, let's check what's there into this example one folder, right? If I will just ls into example one, it is empty because none of the thing was printed. It is just an empty folder, correct? Now, I want to move this secret.txt into example one folder. What I will do? I will use mv example, not example, sorry, mv secret.txt, because I want to move this file. Where I want to move this file, I want to move this into example one, right? And enter. If I will check, secret.txt has been removed from here. And if I will check the example one, if I will ls into example one, we can see the secret.txt is present over there. So what we have did, we have just moved the secret.txt from hackers folder to this example one folder. Correct? Let's just clear the screen. Okay. What are the other files? Other command we can use, like we have used touch, cat, less, head. Okay. We haven't checked the last one. So for reading the file, for example, in the output.txt, we have used cat, right? Instead of cat, we can also use less. We can check the it is a we can check the content of output.txt and all, right? So there are various different commands for performing various same or different actions regarding the files itself. Proceeding ahead, right? Uh, with permissions, what the permission actually means. So in the files, if you just check ls minus a, or you can say ls minus la, even l in the l, like when we list the files, you're just checking out dr w xr, or you can see rw minus r. What this means actually, if you just compare these with the content over here, like let me just zoom it out. Okay, like this. Perfect. If you just compare, uh, if you just compare the content from here, for example, what the RW means, right? The RW means read and write, correct? Here I have R minus R. What the R means? It only read. Then I have R. It means only read. But why I am just passing here three times, like first a read, then read. It means in my laptop, in my this Linux, actually in the Linux, there are three user groups. When you are talking about user groups is something, but they are majorly the three user group actually. The first one is like the root user, or you can the current user. And the second one is like some guest user, correct? Like root user, current user, and guest user also, right? So for the file of output.txt, for the file output.txt, the RW here, is gonna show me that yeah, the current user over here have the access of read and write, correct? When you're talking about R, it represents that R is nothing but the groups, the another groups or similar groups have only read access to this, right? For example, if I have another user, I've logged in with another user called as uh, Rohan. For example, I just logged in with the Rohan, and the Rohan doesn't belong to my user group. Okay, it is from another user group. So that Rohan only have read access to this file. He can read, he can just use the cat command and he can read over here. But he can't perform write action, he can't like edit the file, he can't change the content of the file, he can only read the file over here because I have given him only the read access. And talking about other users like the guest users, they also have only the read access, correct? That's all. Three: read, write, read, and read. You can just check using this. Here we have users, groups, and others. Comparing with this, users, groups, and others, you can check if there is minus, if there is nothing present over there. For example, I will just modify this. Let's say I just modify chmod output.txt. Okay, just modify as I just give read permission to all, right? 444 output.txt. I will check it out. Sorry, ls minus l. The output.txt. Okay, just let me clear the screen and enter the command again. What I did, I just enter here output chmod 444 output.txt. I have passed this command, and then if we check the output.txt, the permissions of output.txt has been changed into write, read, read, and read. But I have passed here 444, right? So what that means, I have given the permission on the basis of numbers. So if I want to give read permission to some file, I will just give him the 4 number. For example, let's take if I just pass here 000, what it will do, ls minus l. I have it is not going to give any permission to anyone. So after like I revoke the permissions from this output.txt, if I want to print, if I want to read the file, right, using the cat command, it's gonna show me that permission denied because I have also denied permission to myself also, right? Even I don't have access for the read permission of this file output.txt, right? Right? Okay, let me just put it over here. I will just zoom out like this. Perfect. Let's try something more. Now I want to give myself only I want to give myself read, write, and execute permission. But I don't want any other user to have any of the permission of this file. So I will give 700 to this output.txt. And after this, if I will check, it has given me the read, write, and execute permission, but none of the permission to any of the other user groups or any of the guest user or someone. Correct? So using chmod, what we have learned using chmod, what we are doing, we are modifying the file's permissions. We can change the permission of the file accordingly, like according to a use case, according to the file or different scenarios. For example, if I have logged into with my user, okay, and there is a file name as password.txt in which I have stored my passwords, and I don't want any of other user to even read that file because I don't want any of the other user to even check what are my files over there, right? So what I can do, I can just revoke the permissions from the other users so that none of the user can read the file also. Getting my point? So this is all about chmod command and permissions. Talking about next, Linux directories. When we're talking about the Linux directories now, so Linux consists of various directories. We have seen that Linux, there are a file system hierarchy, right? We have considered now. We have covered the topic that Linux consists of file system hierarchy, where it concludes various of the file system. But what that all file system actually means, like what are the different types of directories Linux consist? First of all, if you check, for example, if I go to my home screen, in my root screen actually, here you can see there are various different files. Name is bin, dev, home, lib64, lost founds, mint, proc, run, snap, sys, user, media, op, root. What are these files are? Why these are files been used in the Linux? Because we don't file such files in Windows also, right? In Windows, we don't have access to such files. We don't have access to this bin or boot or these dev files, correct? But the Linux offer you such file hierarchy. What that means is there are different type of directories, right? When we're talking about the binary directories, that contains of binaries and compiled source code. So, for example, in this folder named as bin, if I go to this folder name is bin, I can see that there are different binaries of all the commands, correct? See, for example, in the bin we can find okay, we can find various command. For example, we can take example of this chmod. We have been using chmod command right now, right? But when we enter the ch mode over there, the binaries which are executing along with this file are all installed in this bin, right? So in short, for all the commands in the Linux, the binaries of that command, binaries of that programs or the executables are installed into slash bin folder, or you can say slash bin directories and slash sbin directories, correct? This sbin also, this sbin and this bin, this both folder consist of various binaries of all the commands and programs. All right. Next, configuration directories. When we're talking about configuration directories, the files like etc and boot, it consists of configuration file of the system. What the configuration file mean is, for example, if you just go to slash etc, correct? Here you can check various configurations like regarding my kernel, regarding my Java version, my Python version, my user groups, and all. Like in short, my time zones, my system days. Like in short, when we're talking about the system configuration, it consists of how my system gonna work, my system settings, you can say, right? In layman term, you can say my system settings also. So the your slash etc and slash boot, this boot directory consists of system configurations, your data directory, which are your slash home and slash root. So what that means? So the slash home and slash root, this both directories, if you just go to slash home, here it stores all of your data. So similarly, we have seen in the Windows. In Windows, there is a slash in Windows, we have seen the user folder, right? In user folder, what was stored in user folder, we are creating a folder for each user. Like if there are 5 users, there will be 5 different folders for them, right? Similarly, in Linux also, all the user have their own folder in slash home, correct? Here right now I am having only Ashu. I'm only having a user named Ashu. That's why there is only one user named as Ashu. All right. If I will just create any of the user, like add user Raju or something else, and then it's gonna create another folder named as Raju also. So what we are talking about right now is what is data directories. So any file related to me, related to my user, will be stored into this Ashu folder only. So you go into the Ashu, there are various different folders, right? So, and even though I am logged into Ashu, my default directory, like my default directory is gonna be this only, home and Ashu. I'm into home slash home is slash Ashu. So what does slash home is? We just seen slash home is nothing but our data directories, correct? Okay, going back to root directory, we have another folder named as root. What does root means? If I go into root, I don't have even permission to go into the root. What this root means over here? So when we're talking about the root folder, this is something like this belongs to the super user. When we're talking about the super user is someone who have access to all the system. You can say a super user is someone who can log into, who can access any of the file, who have access to changing all the files, who can do any other thing you want. So if I want to just okay, right now what I did, I just logged in using a super user using the command sudo su. When I use the command sudo su, it's gonna ask me the password, right? I enter the password, and right now I am super user. How can I check with which user I am logged in? I can use the command who am I, and gonna show me I am root. I am the super user, and the slash root folder over here. The root folder is default folder for super user. So I will just do a cd, and I will just enter pwd. It's gonna show me I am into the root user. Looking, see, when I was logged in using the Ashu, when I was logged in the user named as Ashu, I don't even have access to uh, go into the root folder. But now, as I'm logged in with the root user, I have access for doing all the thing I want. I can even log into any other user. I can even change any of the system files. I can see any of the system files and all of the stuff. Correct? I just logged with the super user. Next, talking about the memory directories. What are the memory directories? Memory directories are the directories that stores the device files, which doesn't take up actual hard disk space. Okay, we're talking about the memory directories. It stores the device files which doesn't take up actual hard disk space. Example, if I go into this disk stats, okay, cat slash proc and disk stats, it's gonna show me what are the status of the disk right now. How much data had been stored into my RAMs, into my in the loop, what the current status of my CPU, what the current status of my RAM and all, right? The proc file here, it consists of uh, all the information regarding my system. For example, you can see a file name as CPU info, right? If I will just check this CPU info, it's gonna show me the current status of my CPU, where what are the different processes. Let me just go up and up. Okay, from here, process number 0, what is the model of this process, what is micro code, and the flag which are using over there, what are the current what is the size of that CPU. Next, about talking about process 1, processor 2, processor 3 and all. So it store all the data regarding my CPU, correct? And also it also stored how many like it also stored what are the like current stats of the CPU, like how it's working, how many are under use, how is like how many are under use, what is the current usage of my CPU and memory. All of the data regarding my system, all of the data regarding the memories, like all of those device files you can say here. So like all of the data have been stored into these files named as dev, proc and sys, right? I just shown you like about proc. Similarly, you can check for dev, in which we store the data regarding the devices connected. For example, if you have connected your USB, your hard drives, and all this, all are being like stored into this dev folder, right? So when we are talking about these folders like dev and proc, okay, when we're talking about the folders like dev, proc, and sys, these are the system folders which stores the system device files. All right. Another folder is user, that is unique system resources. The unique system resources, it contains shareable and read-only data. Example, user bin and user lib. Okay. So if you just go to user lib, for example, user bin, for example, okay, I just went to the user bin. What it gonna store? It's gonna store all the binaries over there. So you may wonder, like, yeah, I have seen all the binaries into slash bin folder also, right? Why it has been stored into user bin? It can be stored over there also, right? So it contains shareable files. So in the slash bin, we have stored the default binaries of the system. But in user bin, whenever, for example, in my laptop, I want to install any of the other tool or any of the other programs, and that particular tool or program has their individual binary, right? So the binary of that program, the binary of that tool, going to be stored into this user bin, and it will be accessible to all the user. That's why it is called as shareable and read-only data. Correct? When we're talking about var folder, that is variable directories. It contains of large bigger data. For example, logs, cache, and all. So the logs regarding all the processes. For example, any process fails, or you can say system crashes or system failures, or even though any of the current status info, process info, background jobs, and all of the logs files, all of the largest data has been stored into slash var folder. Correct? You can just go to slash var and you can check it out, like what are the data stored over there. Okay, you can see it showed the data regarding backups, regarding cache, regarding crash, libraries, locals, log, mail, opt, run, snap, tool, and temporary also. It also store the temporary data. So like in short, the var folder stores the variables, or you can say big data or big file folders over there. While talking about non-standards like directory which do not come under standard FHS, for example, lost found, slash run, etc. So when I'm talking about the lost and found, if you go to lost and found, you don't have access. Okay, if I go to sudo su, and I will check what is there in the lost and found. It is empty. There is nothing in lost and found. Correct? Because it's non-standard directories. Even though if you just check all other directories, we have not seen this temp folder, right? The temp folder is something which is been used for temporarily storage. For example, any of the data stored into this temp file will be deleted after every restart. All right, and also it store the data which are needed temporarily for running or execution any of the program or any of the tool. All of the data have been stored in the temp file. But while talking about the lost and found and this lost and found folders, it stores like data which are not standards, like they that don't have any standard or any standard type, like which type of data going to be stored over there, and kind of. All right. Next, talking about the OS security. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about OS security. What is OS security? So OS security refers to providing protection system to computer system resources such as CPU, memory disk, programs, and most importantly, data information stored in the computer system. So similarly, as we talk about the system security, web application security, there is something called as OS security, called as operating system security. So the operating system security is nothing but when we're talking about the security of the operating system, we need to know about what is operating system. So we have discussed the operating system. Operating system, just a quick recap, it is nothing but a software. It is also a kind of software. It provides the user interface to the user, where user can install their application softwares and all. It is something which provide instruction to the kernel, and then kernel passes the information to hardware. So the operating system is directly connected with the kernel. Correct? Okay. So it is important for us to maintain the security of operating system as it is directly connected with the kernel, so that if any malicious activity or malicious activity, you can say, or some viruses or worms, if infect the operating system any which way, it also gonna infect the kernel, and also it may affect on your hardware also somewhere. Correct? But when we're talking about operating system, it is very important because all of the data, all of your memory days, and all your storage have been like stored and maintained from the operating system itself. So when we're talking about the operating system security, it is very important to take care. And if a computer program is run by we can consider a scenario like if a computer program is run by an unauthorized user, then he or she can cause severe damage to the computer or data stored in it, right? So a computer system must be protected against unauthorized access, malicious access to system memory, virus, worms, and etc. All right. So in this OS security, we need to take care that our operating system has been used by authorized user only. We need to take care that it is not infected by any of malicious access or any of system viruses or worms or etc. type of. How we can consider how we can gain the authentication part, that only authorized user can access the operating system. So for the authentication refers to identifying each user of the system associated with executing the program with those users. So it's nothing but if my computer have two different users, all right, so I have to authenticate that the user logged in is the same user who have access to all the files. Like no other user other than the owner of that account should log in. So how can I make sure that the user trying to log in is the same user? So I can use it by implementing checks like username and password. We can implement pins. We can use iRetina pattern, which was used nowadays. We can also use cards and keys. So what are these card and keys? Is like some kind. This is a type of like hardware password. You can say hardware authentication, where you have to insert your keys or insert your USB drives into the PC in order to verify yourself, your identity. You can use your fingerprints also, because in most of the computer also support the fingerprints. An operating system can be also like verify or authenticated using the help of fingerprints. So there are different authentication methods we can use to like authenticate the users. Not talking about program threads. So the operating system processors and kernels do a designated task as instructed, right? If a user programs made this process to malicious task, then it is known as program threads. Okay, just to explain in a simpler way, the kernel and system process are going to perform all the instruction that are given to them by the operating system itself. Correct. So if operating system is giving them any unintended or malicious instruction to your kernel, then your kernel gonna perform that malicious instruction, and it's gonna be harmful for the computer as well as for the user and user data. So this is called as program thread. All right. When you're talking about a program thread, there can be multiple different types. Like we can say a Trojan horse, which uses to trap user login credentials. We can use talk about viruses, trapdoors, and logic bombs. What is Trojan horse actually is? Trojan horse is something which can be transferred to the user by the mean of some different files or mails or messages, where it is a trap, or you can say it is a fake. You can give an example of fake pages, or you can say it is a trap to capture the user login credentials or user data. User Trojan horse. It is binded with some data, some piece of the data. Maybe it can bind it with some applications, some documents, and has even sent it to the user. And once installed in the user PC, it's gonna execute, and it's gonna like gather all the information sent to the master. So that's all about the Trojan horse in short. While talking about the viruses are something which replicate themselves on the computer system. It can also modify the system and delete the system files, and crash systems also. So while talking about the viruses can be of different type. There can be of very sophisticated viruses or even the basic viruses also. While talking about the trapdoor, trapdoor is nothing but it's exploiting existing vulnerability in your software, or even performing illegal action without the knowledge of the user. So for example, you are using any of the software which is vulnerable for a particular vulnerability or bugs or payloads. So if you are exploiting this vulnerability, that is called as a trapdoor. While talking about logic bomb is nothing but program misbehaves only a certain condition met. So for example, I have a certain logics, certain conditions, certain over there. Like if user passes true and true, it's gonna show me true, true. If it passes true and false, it's gonna show me false, right? These are very basic logic gates we use. But when we are talking about logic bombs, it's something like we passes the instruction in such a way that we confuse our logic gates that what to do, right? If you are passing our instruction in such a way, it confuses the system, it confuses the logic gates, that what to do, what to do, and what to like respond to this. And in this such confusion, this some confusion of the logics, it gonna misbehave, it gonna perform some unintended behavior. That's what the logic bomb called as. When you talk about system threats refers to the misuse of system services and network connections to put user into trouble. System threats can be used to launch program threats on a complete network called as program attacks. System threats create such an environment that operating system resource by users are misused. So when we're talking about the system threats, in short, we can say system threats are the threat to our computer. What are the threats to our computer? What are the threats of systems? When we're talking about the threats of our system, what are the factors which can affect our security, which can affect the performance, which can affect the working of a system? These all factors are called as system threats, right? While talking about the types of system threats, there are various type of the system threats like worms, port scannings, DOS attacks, and all. No, worms is nothing but it just slow down your system performance by using system resources at extreme level. So for example, if a worm has been infected your system, it's gonna use all of your RAM, it's gonna consume all of your RAMs, so that your system performance is gonna be degraded. Talking about the port scanning, port scanning is something which hackers use to detect the vulnerabilities and make attack on the system. So for example, if we are connected on the same network, let's say I got the IP of your system or something, I can perform the port scanning on your system, so I can check which are the ports open on your system, so that I can come to know if any of the port is open there. I can scan for the vulnerability of that particular port, I can exploit it, right? While talking about the denial of the services, it something which prevent user to make legitimate use of the system. Correct. This system is hosted on the cloud, for example, and you are using it using SSH or FTP. I'm gonna send multiple SSH requests or multiple FTP requests, and which gonna make your system down so that it will not be accessible to any of the user. Or for example, if you are just hosting any of your website on your laptop on your system, and if I send a multiple request to a website, then your website gonna be taken down because it can't handle a lot more amount of request at a particular time, right? That's what a denial of service is. While talking about the Android OS, so till now we had talked about Windows OS, Linux OS. Now we are talking about Android OS. So Android OS, I guess it's one of the most popular operating system used nowadays. There are various different version of Android OS. Previously, it was initiated like 1.5, that is cupcake, donut, eclair, Fyro, gingerbread, honeycomb, ice cream sandwich, jelly bean, Kit Kat, lollipop. There are various different names of the operating Android OS, and if you just focus on the name, you could come to know that the names of the operating Android versions has been kept on the sweets name, right? On the name of sweet dishes. Okay. There are multiple different versions like marshmallow, nougat, Oreo, and pie. My, sorry. So I don't know what how their naming culture is going on, naming combination is going on, but still, while talking about the Android OS, right now the latest Android operating system we are using is version 13, which is the latest pull done this year only, I guess, on December of 2022. Talking about the features of Android operating system. So Android operating system provides multiple features. It provides us the Play Stores to download applications. It provides us multitasking features, right? It provides multiple features. It also takes care of consideration of security part. Like in Android operating system is so secured. It takes it perform. It also provides a feature of Google inbuilt Google install in your Android, right? So the Google Play Protect is also been installed by default in all the Android, which is gonna scan all of the installed application and all. And also, while talking about the security part, the permission managers and various other option has been given in the Android in order to maintain the security and take in consideration of always scanning your files and application installing in your devices. So Android OS take care of the security part also. I'm talking about the buttons, new app supports, permissions, user experiences. These are a few points you can just talk about. When we're talking about the buttons, Android operating system is always take care of the user interfaces, right? It always enhances the user interfaces according to the user convenient, which makes more user attraction, which gathers more user attraction also. It also in Android also it supports large number of application, either it is built on any of the programming language like React Native, Flutter, Node, Java, and all, right? Uh, when we're proceeding ahead with Android security part, so we can check for the Android security at the okay. Let me show you this link. Okay, so any of the vulnerability reported to the Androids can be seen on this website, where you can just visit and see what are the recent vulnerabilities reported to the Google Android and what are the vulnerabilities which has been patched, or what was it all about and why this particular Android update we are getting. Whenever we get Android updates in our mobile phone in our Androids, if you just read over there, there's written fixed patches, fixed vulnerabilities and all. And also on the Google Play Store also, whenever you're getting the updates of the system applications, we can see the fixed vulnerabilities over there or system patches over there. So Android always scans all your applications, all of the vulnerabilities, to take care of all the vulnerabilities and even patch all of them on timely manner. Now talking about WSL, okay, we have till now talked about Android, OS, Linux, and all. But what is WSL? WSL is nothing but Windows subsystem for Linux. It is a feature of the Windows operating system that enable you to run Linux file system along with Linux command line tools and GUI apps directly on Windows alongside with traditional Windows shop and apps. So before, what was happening is we want Windows as well as we are also dependent on Linux because we need Linux for particular task and all, because the commands of Windows and Linux are a bit different, and user have been familiar with Linux. So what they are using for using Linux, that they can opt for dual boot or even they can opt for virtual machines, right? But WSL was introduced to overcome all of this. What WSL does in the Windows itself, it provides the user the access to the Linux file system, the Linux terminal, where all of the files, all of the commands of the Linux can be executed in a can be executed and run properly with the proper Windows kernel, correct? So right now also, when I was demonstrating you here, I'm just using WSL in my Windows operating system, where I have installed the WSL. I'm using all the Linux command over here. I can use all of the Linux tools over here, right? So WSL is one of the new features of Windows, which has been rolled out into all of the Windows 10 and Windows 11 itself already. So that's about WSL. With this, we can end up with the slides. Okay. I guess we are done with the session, with the slides. If now we can go for questions. If anybody have?
Well, thank you so much, Ashutosh. If anyone have any questions for Ashutosh, please ask so we can get more details about it. If anyone have any questions or any doubt. Well, Ashutosh, I can see there is one question from Vipin Lak Kumar. He wanted to know what is firmware.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, like now you're audible.
Okay, so we have one question from Bipin Lap Kumar. His question is, what is firmware?
What is firmware?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we're talking about the firmware is nothing but it is just one of another kind of software that provide the basic machine instruction, like how does the hardware going to perform, and how does hardware going to communicate with other software running on the devices. So we are running firmware, like it will be used for kernel itself also. So for example, we can use different hardwares, like if I am using additionally a Wi-Fi USB, right? If I'm using a Wi-Fi USB in my laptop, okay, in my computer. So what was happening? Let's say a basic example. There is a computer, and in computer the Wi-Fi is not available, right? Then most of the computer, what was happening is like Wi-Fi was not available. You have to use your LAN cables only. So if you want to use Wi-Fi in the computer, so what you can do, you can use the external Wi-Fi modules, right, which is available in the market. So for using that external Wi-Fi modules, which is hardware only, right? When we use that Wi-Fi module, we can install the firmware of that Wi-Fi module, which gonna help us to communicate with this hardware, with that piece of hardware that is Wi-Fi module, and we can use it according to our need, right? So in short, firmware is nothing but it is a software that provides the basic instruction, and that help us or allow us to use the hardware for proper functioning and communicating with other softwares. I hope it answers.
Well, we have one more question, Ashutosh.
Yeah.
What is the difference between virtual machine versus dual boot?
Okay, difference between virtual machine and a dual boot. So when we're using virtual machine, it is nothing but we are just using our operating system. Or okay, for example, if you are using Windows, okay, and you want to do you also want to use Linux also. So you have two options majorly, like you can opt for virtual machine or dual build, right? But when you're using virtual machine now, you are just on the top of Windows, you are installing another kernel, another operating system of Linux, right? So here you are not partitioning, or you are not partitioning on storage. The main operating system running on your storage, on your drive, is operating is Windows only, right? For example, if you have SSD of 512 GB, okay, in this 512 GB SSD, a Windows is installed, all right, but you want to use Linux also. So what you can do, on this Windows, which is installed in 512 GB of SSD, on this Windows, you can install VirtualBox or VMware, and this in this virtual machine, you can use your Linux. So what you're gonna do, it's gonna perform hypervision. It's gonna divide the existing memories, existing storage into two different partition, so that your Windows gonna work upon, for example, if you have 8 GB of RAM, Windows gonna work upon 4 GB RAM, and Linux gonna work upon another 4 GB RAM, and both going to work at the same time, correct? So every time you want to use Linux, you have to turn on your Windows, you have to turn on your virtual machine, and you have to run your Linux on the hypervision. So virtual machine is totally works upon the hypervision concept. But while we're talking about a dual boot, what it does is, in my 512 GB of SSD, I'm going to make a partition. I will partition that SSD into two drives. Like I will partition that into 256 GB and 256 GB. Correct. In one partition, I will install Windows. In another partition, I will install Linux. Now what will happen? Every time I want to boot up, I want to boot my I will start my laptop. It's gonna ask me which OS you want to start with. You can either start with Linux, or you can start with the Windows. So if I will choose Linux at that time in the dual boot, So I am allotting my all of the memories to Linux only. So Linux can use my all 8 GB of RAM. Instead of hypervision, it gonna use my all of the hardware, direct access to the hardware. So that's the basic difference between the virtual machine and dual boot. In virtual machine, we are using hypervision concept. In dual boot, we are just installing into a system and using two different operating systems.
Well, thank you for answering that. We have some more questions.
Yeah.
So the next question is, why WSL is not working in Windows 10 Home?
My WSL is
Not working in Windows 10 Home.
Windows 10.
Windows 10 Home version.
Okay. Okay. When we're talking about the Windows 10, I guess WSL has been introduced in the Windows 10. So when we're talking about Windows 10, it was like introduced between, I guess, 2017, 18, if I'm not wrong. But WSL was introduced somewhat between 2019. So in the latest version of 10, of Windows 10, if you use the latest version of Windows 10, you can find the WSL installed in that also. So it is not somewhat like Windows 10 is not been accessible. WSL is not been accessible in Windows 10. You can use WSL also in Windows 10 also. So like yeah, that's what I have used, because yeah, I have also used WSL in my Windows 10. And when I'm talking about Windows 10 Home, I guess it is not supported. It has not a proper files or configuration regarding the Windows 10. Either you can opt for updating your Windows 10 to the latest version, so it can opt for WSL also. I hope I answered the question, ma'am, right? Hello.
Well, Ashutosh, thank you for answering that. We have few more questions. But before that, I would like everyone to know that I'm going to submit a quiz form right now, a quiz link. I would just request everyone to just appear this quiz. Just give me 1 minute. I'm going to send the quiz link so we can continue with the questions and answers. So the next question is,
Yeah.
WSL is in the market. So can you tell us which one is better, Kali or WSL?
Okay. When we are comparing the Kali and WSL, so WSL is an option to install Linux into your Windows, right? It is an option to like running your Linux into your Windows directly, Linux terminal into your Windows. But while talking about Kali Linux, it is an operating system. All right. So if you want to install your Ubuntu into your Windows, for example, if you want to install your Ubuntu in your Windows, you can use WSL. You can install your Ubuntu into a WSL, so you can use Ubuntu directly. But when talking about the Kali Linux, it is not something like way or it is not something. It is like something. It is operating system. You can even install your Kali Linux into your WSL. You just have to check out the different methods to do so. You can also install your Kali Linux. A part of Kali Linux, you can install various other operating systems like Ubuntu, Parrot OS, Kali, and also these all are the different distros of Linux. All right. When you're talking about distros, these are different distros of Linux. But WSL is something which we use to install the Linux, right? So we can install all of that different type of distros in your Windows using the WSL. Yeah.
Ashutosh?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have one more question.
Yeah.
And can we use MV and RM both to rename files?
Sorry.
Can we use
Can we use?
can we use
Hmm.
MV and RM both to rename files?
Can we use MV and RM? No, no, no. No. Right. While we are using MV is something we use for move, right? And the RM command we used for removing the file. Correct. So if you want to delete the file, you can use the RM command. You can use the RM command to delete the file, right? And MV command we use to either rename the file or either moving the file from one directory to some other directory. Okay. So MV and RM both have different functionality. Both are different commands.
Difference between MBR and GPT.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Ashutosh, the next question is difference between MBR and GPT.
Mhm. Okay, MBR and GPT. When you're talking about the MBR and GPT, so MBR is nothing but you can say it's a type of disk. There are two different type of disks. You can say when you're using MBR, it uses the standard BIOS partition table, right? When you're talking about BIOS partition table, it consists of basic input and output partitions, right? So we can use MBR, like which full form I guess is master boot record. And when we're talking about GPT, which include your GUID partition table somewhat, right? So we are using GPT for UEFI for UEFI booting, and we use MBR for BIOS partition, BIOS booting. So the basic difference between both is that when you are using MBR, all right, when you're using MBR, you can only have one partition in your BIOS. But if you're using GPT, that is a GUID partition table, you can have like more than 2 or 4 partition into a one disk only. So like for GPT also, like there is some certain limitations, like you have to require disk larger than 2 TB or somewhat, or 1 or 2 TB somewhat. So that it is possible for you to like make more than 4 partition also. So most of the time we always use MBR as a BIOS, but if you are using UEFI, if you want to use UEFI for GPT, you can use also.
Thank you. That was very informative. And there is a one more question which we received. It. Difference between firmware and device drivers.
Firmware and device drivers.
Yeah.
Okay. When we're talking about firmware, I just answered it. Yeah, that firmware is something that software. Okay. So firmware is something that help us to communicate between the hardware and the and your operating system. That is your kernel. That is operating system, right? It will help us to communicate and proper functioning, right? But firmware is like it also runs on your devices. Like if you want to run a firmware for connecting your hardware external, we have taken the example of that USB module, right? You want to use that USB module, the firmware of that module gonna be executed or run in your device, maybe as GUI or maybe in the background. It's gonna execute like a simple softwares also. So when you're talking about the firmware, it is a software that also execute on a device, right? But when you're talking about the drivers is like a type of software that tell your operating system like how to communicate with all the hardwares, right? in short, if you see that firmware is something which directly communicate with the with your hardware. It also execute like system applications. All right. When we're talking about those drivers, it helps the operating system by telling them how they can communicate with the hardwares, like what is the process, how they can communicate, what are the eligible standard format to communicate with this type of hardware and all. That's the basic difference between both.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering that. And what is the main difference between VMware and VirtualBox, and which one is better?
Okay, VMware and VirtualBox. When we're talking about VMware and VirtualBox, I guess, okay, VirtualBox is, I guess, both are the ways we use for virtualization. If you want to use the Linux also, when you're using VirtualBox, it is something which is open source hypervision. VirtualBox is like provided by Oracle. Okay. And I'm talking about the VMware. It is also a type of operating system which we use for virtualization. But if for regarding the question, like why we what we should use, so that totally depend upon your use case scenario. For example, if you want to just use virtualization for installing your operating system or something, so you can go for VirtualBox, because VirtualBox is something which is easy to configure and it is actually convenient. But if you want to do something related to virtualization as well as clouds, cloud computing and all, so you should opt for VMware, where you will get a better experiences. If you want to do something related to cloud things and all, like if you want to do virtualization of RDPs, SSH also, and also you want to do virtualization of your softwares and all, then VMware come to the picture. But for the beginner also, and for the better convenient use, for if your use case only limited to for using the operating system or practicing the operating system or learning the operating system or using that, go for the VirtualBox.
Well, thank you so much for answering that as well. And let me check if there are any more questions.
Yeah.
So I believe the quiz which has been posted on the YouTube channel, that will be closed by 12:25 Indian Standard Time, IST. And I don't see any other questions. Ashutosh? And yeah, so just give me a few minutes.
Sure.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It was great and nice PPT. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a great
Yes,
opportunity.
we actually thank you for your time. Okay, it was quite informative and quite learning. So we will be sending the feedback form on the YouTube channel. Please submit the feedback form. And for the quiz link, it will be closed by 12:25 Indian Standard Time, IST. Prathamesh? Prathamesh, you want to add anything?
No.
Hello. Uh, we request everyone to stay connected because we are going to share the details for the next session. So please stay connected with us. So the quiz link, the time has been closed. It's 12:25. So the for the quiz, the link, the timing has been closed. Please share your valuable feedback. The feedback link has been shared on the YouTube channel. And so you all will be getting an email. So the people who have enrolled it for this internship, you will be getting an email, and on Telegram as well. We will be publishing the timing for the next session. So it will be 2 p.m. tomorrow. So the second session is going to be 2 p.m. tomorrow, and the details will be emailed to all of the enrolled people, and it will be published on Telegram as well. So that's all for today. And we are closing this session now. And thank you, Ashutosh, once again for your time. So, and thank you for everyone for giving your time. And let's meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. Thank you all, and keep learning. And we are closing this session now.
Yes, thank you, Arundhati ma'am. Thank you, Ashutosh. Thank you all. Will be joining from the YouTube. We will meet tomorrow. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye everyone. Thank you.